Hey everyone, welcome to Area 616. So on Saturday, I went and saw the first two episodes of Inhumans in an IMAX theater. So you guys most likely know I was skeptical going into this, and the early reviews certainly didn't help with that, but I still tried to go in with an open mind despite the early negativity, like I did with Iron Fist. The difference is, with Iron Fist, there were a couple of good things sprinkled here and there that almost made the show worth the watch. But this, not quite. I've never seen something, and especially not something from Marvel, where it takes about 10 seconds for me to realize it's awful. I'm not kidding, barely 10 seconds into it, and I already didn't like it. I'm going to try and keep things spoiler-free here. I know that not everyone has the luxury of a close-by IMAX theater. Even I had to drive out an hour to see this, so I'll keep that in mind. But honestly, Inhumans was pretty terrible, in all the ways I expected and more. This is an enormous loss for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. People said that Iron Fist was Marvel's first big flop, but I don't think so. That show wasn't well received, but it had a big opening, and it has a loyal fan base. And it even has some redeeming moments in it, and it looks like Season 2 could repair the damages. With this, I know I'm only 2 episodes in, but the damage seems to be irreversible. It's hard to see how they can fix all the terrible decisions this show has made. So let's go through them. Visually, it is absolutely dull. The costumes were all terrible, they looked cheap, and were just simply boring looking. The only costume I could say that I didn't hate was Crystal's. It looked alright. But beyond that, everyone looks terrible. Adelan itself is just like a big gray factory. It's so dull. In the comics, sure, it's gray, but it's got big towers and tall rooms, and it's just all around impressive in a way. Here, it's just so visually uninspired. Everything is, really. The only thing that looks accurate is Lockjaw. He was fine, but he's barely in it. I understand that he'd be expensive to be all over the place, but still. This is kind of a spoiler. I won't say what he's doing here, but Eldrak the Door, an Inhuman who's basically a portal, does appear. In the comics, he's pretty cool looking. He basically looks like a giant robotic face. Here, he's just a gray human face that pops out of a gray normal wall in a gray dull room. It's so boring. I mean, it's the 100th birthday of Jack Kirby, an artist who created some of the most eye-popping and iconic images in comics history. He is the king of comics, and one of his creations was the Inhumans, arguably his most Kirby characters. This show literally comes out the same week as his birthday. Could they not respect a comics great by using his designs a bit more? I mean, they're doing it for Thor Ragnarok, in that everything from the logo in the movie is dripping with Kirby coolness. Why not bring that in here? And I get that there's only so much they can do with the budget they have, I get that, but even if you ignore how visually boring it is, it's still a pretty terrible show. The acting is pretty bad all around. I guess Gorgon and Karnak were fine, but they weren't given a whole lot to do in these episodes. They're just nowhere near as interesting as they are in the comics. I'd like to give the actors credit for having to work with the dialogue here, which is not very good at all, especially Crystal's actress. She was pretty bad, but I feel the biggest thing that plagued her character was the writing. Aran was a shell of her character in the comics. Here she's the villain's henchman character, with no discernible motivations or arcs. She's completely unlike the comics. I think she was actually a good guy there in the comics. I could be wrong. Correct me if I am in the comics, but I'm pretty sure she was. So, what happened? I didn't outright hate Maximus, and I appreciate that they tried to make his character deeper and give him better motivations than the comics, where he's literally called Maximus the Mad. But it just didn't quite work here. And I think the worst of it is Medusa and Black Bolt. With Black Bolt, Anson Mount apparently signed on because he was interested in acting with just his facial expressions, which, well, he did. His face was just very animated. He looks right for Black Bolt, and honestly, he was fine most of the time. And he probably would have been better if he was directed right, but he just didn't have Black Bolt's presence. And they needed a director to tell him to tone it down a little bit, but the director was a guy who, of his own admission, was literally just hired because he could make stuff fast and cheap. I'll get to that in a minute. But Medusa was the worst part of this whole thing, just simply because they butchered her character. In the comics, she's a strong character who's smart and decisive and always has a presence. But here she spends 80% of it either crying or on the verge of tears. And as soon as she loses her hair, which isn't a spoiler apparently, because Marvel literally revealed it in one of the Inhumans trailers.
I am the Queen of Adelan. No one tells me what to do.
She basically just kind of stumbles around lost. I get that they're building her up to an arc where she becomes stronger and all, but still, it was disappointing to see all of these great characters reduced to such weak ones. And honestly, I think the main cause of all this is that it was simply rushed. ABC and Marvel, for whatever reason, wanted this out by fall, which is what hurt the show. There are genuinely good ideas in here, like Maximus's relationship with the citizens of Adelan, and exploring how the royal family maybe aren't heroes in the eyes of their people. But they just weren't done well here. They simply needed time to find a better showrunner, to develop ideas, to design better costumes and locations for the show, and to just think this out. I don't think anyone would have cared that they'd set this for next fall, as long as we get a good show. I mean, they could have set it for 2020 for all I care. The IMAX wasn't that good either. It's hard to tell exactly why it was in IMAX. Like, the idea sounds good with the Inhumans. They have a lot of scale to them, so it sounds good, but there was just nothing in these episodes that really seemed to justify being in IMAX. But as we were leaving, the people I saw it with basically put it best by saying the only two words Black Bolt ever says sum it up pretty well. Why? And a groan. Bottom line is, this was truly just as bad as everyone said it was. I'm sure a lot of people will like this, and that's awesome, honestly. I'm jealous, really. I wanted this to be good, but it just wasn't. This should have been Marvel's Game of Thrones, but instead it's more like Marvel's Aragon. There are so many things I want to get into here, but I won't for the sake of spoilers. If you guys want to see a spoilers discussion for Inhumans, leave a comment and let me know. I do have some stuff I'd love to talk about. I didn't want to put spoilers here just because I figured there were probably a lot of fans who were just planning to wait until it goes on ABC. Honestly, I would have done the same, but I wanted to see it so I could get a video out for you guys. So remember, I did this for you. But hey, if you guys liked it, let me know. There's no shame in liking this, seriously. Here at Area 616, you could think that Elektra should have been played by Terry Crews and you'd still be welcome here. So if you've seen it, what did you guys think? Were you disappointed or did you enjoy it? Do you guys want a spoilers discussion? If you do, I can have it out in the next couple days. Let me know all your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.